What's up guys? Welcome to Cosplay University. I'm Adonis Cosplay and today we're going to make some gloves. Specifically fingerless gloves, but this tutorial also works for regular gloves as well. So we're going to go ahead and walk you through this. Let's get started. The things that you guys are going to need for this tutorial, pretty simple. You're going to need some stretchy fabric for the gloves, some thread, your sewing machine, and if you want to round the tops of the glove fingers here, a needle, so you can hand sew. There are multiple ways to make gloves. This is one option. This is probably the easiest option, what I call the sandwich method. You have two pieces, a front and a back, and you stitch them together. There's some that have fabric that go in between the fingers. That's a more complicated version that we're going to do in another tutorial later on down the road. So if you want one of those, stick around and you might see it sometime. There are a lot of others, but this is the easiest one. I'm going to teach it to you today. Let's get in it. Alright everybody, the first thing that you want to do is get yourself some fabric that is nice and stretchy. Again, this tutorial's the easiest way you can really make gloves. It's going to be kind of what we call the sandwich method. So that means I have two pieces of fabric sandwiched together to go around your hand as a glove. I've taken my fabric already and folded it in half, so you can see there's two layers right here. The seam or the folds on this side. And I kind of pin it in all the corners just to kind of make it easier to keep track of where the fabric is and to hold it together whenever I'm cutting it out later. The first step you want to do after you have your fabric folded is to go ahead and trace one of your hands. So I would take my right hand, put it here, and then I'm going to take either a pencil or some chalk or a marker of some kind and outline my hand. You can kind of see I've already done it on this one, and since I'm only doing fingerless gloves, I outline my hand and then cut it off at each knuckle. So that's where I want my fingerless gloves to stop, so that's how I did it there. If you wanted to do regular gloves, this works exactly the same way. You would just outline your whole hand and you would want enough fabric to cover it. Obviously where I'm putting my hand right now, there's not enough fabric to make a full glove. So that's why I'm doing fingerless. Once you have your glove outlined on both sides, I went ahead and pinned it in place. You can see I put pins in on the outline of my glove. We're actually going to go ahead and sew right into this. And it's going to be, again, different if you're doing a full glove. You're going to sew the fingers too. But since I'm only doing my fingerless gloves, I'm going to start where the fingers end, sew all the way down, sew my lines, etc. And that way, whenever I have it sewed, I can take the pins out and I can try it on right here. Just as a quick reminder, you do want fabric that's really stretchy. This stuff here is very stretchy. This is gonna work fine. The reason being for that is if it's not stretchy, this is not gonna fit around your hand because you have to go around your finger and the seam's gonna be on the side of all your fingers. It's gonna need to bend quite a bit. Also, if your fabric is not as stretchy as this, having a wrist width this wide is not big enough to get your hand in. So make sure you take that into account when you're making your glove. Alright, so we have the other hand traced now. I have my left hand traced and my right hand traced. My left hand is already pinned, ready to go. Just to kind of, again, see the pattern. Something I wanted to mention is when you're doing your tracing, if you're doing fingerless gloves, make sure you add enough length on the end to allow for seam allowance. If I want my glove to stop right at my knuckle, I don't want to cut it off right here because we're going to sew that seam later on, so it ended up being lower. We actually want to cut off a little bit above our knuckle. That way when we fold that edge down and sew it, it'll be right where we want it to go. The next step would be to go ahead and sew these together. So what I'm going to do is sew along all these lines, except for the finger holes. Obviously you want to leave those open and the wrist hole. But we're going to sew them on and then I'm going to try the glove on and then I can cut it out after that. You can cut it out first, that's totally fine if you want to, but make sure again you have enough space on the outside for seams. We're going to use a cross stitch or a zigzag pattern on this sewing, so it should stretch whenever we put it on. Let's get sewing. Alright guys, so as you can see we have our gloves sewn together. Again, this is just one piece of fabric that's folded in half. And we sewed them together. It's like I said earlier, sandwich method. I'm wearing one of the gloves right now while it's still attached to the fabric. This is what you want to do to check to make sure everything fits, and it fits my hand great. And like I said, with this stretchy fabric, you don't have to worry too much because of the stretch is going to kind of wrap around your hand. So now you can go ahead and cut these out, and we're going to cut close around the stitching without cutting the stitching, and that'll give us minimal extra fabric on the inside of our glove. From here, you have two options. You can either leave this raw, this edge raw right here if you're going to cover with something else, or we can do the next step, which is tuck it under and sew it, which I'll show you guys in just a minute. We're also going to sew the finger caps once we get those cut to the right length. If you guys did full finger gloves, you're obviously not going to have this. You're going to continue these stitches up to that point or rounded shape and then back over, and you won't have to worry about sewing these, so we'll skip that step later if that's what you guys are doing. But for now, let's go sew the cuff. Alright guys, the next step is to sew that cuff around your wrist. As you can see, this one is the one we just cut out and it hasn't been turned inside out, but I have rolled up the cuff and I've pinned it on both sides. So if you can see, there's one pin and there's the other one. It's only about maybe half an inch rolled up, so you kind of do as much as you think you need. I'm going to use that zigzag stitch again, so I think that's probably a good amount for me on this one. This glove has been turned inside out, so this is what it's going to look like when you turn inside out and how you're actually going to wear it. Now we haven't done the fingers and we haven't done the cuff yet, so that's what's coming next. So I'm going to go ahead and do both of these and I'll show you the end result. Alright everybody, so we just finished making our gloves. I was going to include the last step of sewing sewing over the tops of the fingers, but these actually turned out really awesome, and I think I'm just going to leave them raw like this. If you wanted to sew them over, it's really easy. You just fold the tops down and then you can hand stitch, or if you're super good with your machine, you can machine sew it, but I'm going to leave it like this. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. If you want to see more tutorials, comment below what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next one. Now go make something cool. Let's see. I think that's it. Cool.